The Notch Trail is the most exciting trail in Badlands National Park. I'm so excited that you're hoping to hike it. So today I want to talk you through my 5 tips for hiking the Notch Trail so that you can avoid those crowds and have a fantastic experience in this park. My name is Ash. I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes, and South Dakota is one of my very favorite places to take my family. You will find us here all the time exploring all the beautiful national parks and monuments in this area. So I have spent a ton of time in Badlands National Park. I love it. I think it is severely underrated. I think it's one of the coolest national parks you can visit. So today I want to get you out on the Notch Trail. I want to help you have a really great experience on this trail. It's a super popular trail for good reason, and we'll talk about that. But there are some tips and tricks that you can use to have an even better experience on this trail. So let's jump in and talk all about the Notch Trail in Badlands National Park. First things first, here's a map of Badlands National Park, and if you're coming in from Rapid City, you're coming in from over here, this is I-90 here. And so to get to the Notch Trail, you're actually going to pass this entrance here, the Pinnacles entrance, or if you want to drive through the park to get to the Notch. But really the easiest way is to stay on the 90 and get on this exit 131, and then you'll go down through the northeast entrance, and then you'll just pop into the park right here. And these bathrooms here mark where the Notch Trail is. Okay, so for a closer look, here's the road coming down from exit 131, and you'll find this huge parking lot here, and there's bathrooms. You'll want to make sure you bring lots of drinking water. That's something that you'll just want to keep in your car as you're going around Badlands National Park. You'll definitely need it because it does get hot in this park, and we want you to stay safe out on the trail. So you'll park here in this parking lot here and park probably towards the south end of the parking lot if your main goal is to do the Notch Trail while you're here. You can see there's a couple other trails, the Door Trail and the Window Trail. Those are really fun too, but we're here for the Notch Trail. So you'll park kind of down here along the southern part of the parking lot, and then you'll catch the Notch Trail from there. It is marked with a sign. So my tip number 1 for hiking the Notch Trail is to hike this trail either early or late. I really would avoid that middle part of the day for a couple of different reasons. The first reason being that the latter portion of this trail, which we'll talk about here in a minute, that's the bottleneck of the trail. It gets really busy. Everybody wants to go on the ladder. People want to try to take their pictures. They want to, kind of hang out in this area. And it's only an up or down, and so you have to take turns. People at the bottom have to wait for people at the top to come down. People at the top have to wait for people at the bottom to come up. And so it is just kind of a shuffle, and the trail just majorly bottlenecks in this area. And so I like to avoid that middle part of the day when this trail gets the busiest so that I'm not just standing around waiting for my turn to hike up the ladder. Another reason to hike this trail early or late is to avoid those main parts of the day when it gets really, really hot in this park, especially if you're visiting during the summer. It can be 90 plus degrees. And so it's just, I don't know, maybe you're okay with that. I hate hiking when it's that hot outside. It's not enjoyable for me. And Badlands is pretty unforgiving. There's not a lot of shade. So you are just like in direct sunlight most of the time. So I like to avoid the middle part of the day if I'm doing a longer hike. This trail is about 1.5 miles long round trip. It's actually one of the longer trails, established trails in Badlands National Park that you can hike. And so try to avoid that middle of the day for that because a lot of the shorter trails you can hurry and like pop in, pop out, even if it's hot. But for the Notch Trail, I would definitely aim for those early morning or later evening hours because of that reason. One last thing that a lot of people don't think about is the photography in Badlands is actually way better in the early morning or later evening hours when the sun isn't as harsh. So another reason to go early or late on this trail, your pictures will look better. I feel like that was like 6 tips in one, but that was number 1. Tip number 2 is to don't psych yourself out on the ladder. Okay, so why is the Notch Trail such a big deal? It's because of this really epic ladder. It's a wooden ladder that takes you up the cliffs. It's really fun. That really is the highlight for pretty much everybody who hikes the Notch Trail. And in the pictures, it looks, I would say, scarier than it actually is. The ladder, it's about 50 feet, but a lot of that is a pretty slight incline up the cliff. Not until you get to the very top does it actually feel like you're climbing the rungs of a ladder. And so a lot of people see pictures of this ladder and think, oh my gosh, like I'm so scared of heights. I could never do that. And the pictures do make it look quite a bit more dramatic than it actually feels while you're on there. So if you have a severe fear of heights, then you may want to skip the ladder portion. But if you're just kind of, unsure if you're going to be okay on it or not, I would say try it. I would get on there. I would try it. See, again, it looks scarier than it actually is because that incline isn't quite as severe as the pictures make it look. If you're hiking with younger kids, we do take our kids on this ladder. They do just fine. They do really well. They are little adventure kids, so they're used to doing stuff like this. But there is a way around the ladder, which I'll talk about in tip number 3. I personally would at least start it and see how you do, see how you feel. If you need to come back down and go the way around, that's fine. No shame in that. But give it a try, and I think that you'll be really glad that you did. So beyond the ladder, because that's really what most people know about the Notch Trail, is that there's that big ladder. But what a lot of people don't know leads me into tip number 3, which is to beware of the cliff edges on this trail. So you get up the ladder, and the reason you're going up the ladder is then to get more onto the Badlands formations. And as you're hiking beyond the ladder, you're actually on a pretty sheer cliff's edge. It's not like a super, super narrow path. You've got about 5 to 6 feet of path to work with on this cliff's edge. But I do just want to make you aware that that is what is waiting for you beyond the ladder. Okay, so there is a way I mentioned to bypass the ladder, and you'll actually bypass most of the cliff's edges if you do this. But when you get to the ladder along the Notch Trail, instead of turning right and going up the ladder, if you stay straight, you'll stay down in the bottom of the canyon. There is a pathway through there that will then meet up with the regular trail as it gets closer to the end. So if you stay in the bottom of the canyon, then you will bypass a lot of those cliff's edges as well. And so that's a good way around it if you're just thinking, no, like this ladder, these cliff edges, this is not for me. But I will say that the Notch Trail, so when you get to the end to see the view, it's fine. It's beautiful. But the point kind of hiking the Notch Trail is for those other adventurous aspects of it. I wouldn't say that like the destination is the highlight on this trail at all. The highlight of this trail really is going out of your comfort zone a little bit and doing something that is a bit more adventurous than you probably always do. And so I would just, again, encourage you to start the ladder, see if you can feel okay about that, get up in there. There are cliff's edges, but it's not something to be really worried about because there is a lot of space on the trail to navigate those cliffs. So again, about this trail, it's not really about the destination, it's more the adventure that you have along the way. Tip number 4 is to check the weather. So this is actually pretty important, and this will make it so that you're safer on the ladder and those cliff's edges because this park, it doesn't get a lot of rain, but when it does, it kind of turns into a big slimy, gloopy mess. The Badlands formations are more of a clay consistency, and so when it gets wet, it's just like really slippery and slimy. And so you're gonna wanna check the weather, and you're gonna wanna hike this trail on the driest day of your trip. You're not going to want to be on this trail if it's recently rained. Again, it doesn't rain a lot in Badlands. Where you're going to see probably the most rain is in the afternoons. It's pretty typical for some bigger thunderstorms to roll through in the afternoons, especially during the summer. And so that's just something to keep in mind and be aware of. You're really going to want to be on this trail when it's dry so that you're not slipping and sliding around. And I mentioned earlier, Badlands does get really, really hot during the middle of the day, especially during the summer months. And so if you can avoid that middle part, that's something else. You're going to want to pay attention to the weather to see how hot it's going to be the day that you're hoping to hike this, and then make those adjustments. Make sure you're getting to the trail either early in the morning or later in the evening. And tip number 5, this is just to put this out there. There are rattlesnakes in Badlands National Park, quite a few. And so as you're hiking this trail, make sure you're watching for rattlesnakes. Rattlesnakes, typically, you're not going to see them as much in the daytime when it's hot, especially during the summer. They are going to seek shade. So we personally have never seen a rattlesnake on this trail. We've seen rattlesnakes in other parts of Badlands and on other trails. This one I have not, but I know people who have. So just keep that in mind. And as you're hiking, especially if you're hiking with younger kids, just don't let them, stick their hands into holes or anywhere where there's shade or moving rocks around or things like that, because there can be rattlesnakes in those areas too. So that's just, to put that in your brain so that you're kind of watching for it as you're hiking around Badlands, specifically the Notch Trail, because that's what we're talking about today. But all throughout Badlands, that's something you'll want to be aware of. I look forward to hiking the Notch Trail every time I'm in Badlands National Park. This is not one that I skip or that gets old or boring. It's always a new adventure. And so I hope that these tips are helpful to making you more aware of what you'll need to know before you hike the Notch Trail so that you can have a huge adventure and a ton of fun with those that you love. I have so many more tips about Badlands National Park and the other South Dakota national parks. And so head over to dirtandmyshoes.com to read more about how to plan your trip. I also have a ton more videos here on the YouTube channel that you can watch for extra help. If you want to know how I spend my time in the South Dakota national parks, head to dirtandmyshoes.com and get your South Dakota itinerary. I will walk you through everything. I will make sure you're not sitting in traffic. I will help you avoid the crowds and see the best stuff. You can get that in the link below this video. Have a spectacular time in Badlands National Park, and I will see you out on the trail.